But now, we didn't invite those, after the game, we didn't invite those girls to our house or a party or anything. It wasn't, just wasn't done.
More questions, please. Ms. Martin, you said you was living in a close-knit community. When did you all start branching out into the overall community? After segregation or what?
Trying to see if I understand your question. You mean,
You
when
said
did you
you
start
was
interacting?
living- Yes, when did
Okay.
you most start interacting?
Oh, we interacted with the other black communities, okay? Now, schools desegregated here, what year, Larry?
1977.
Now, back then, when Dr. Burns talked about back in the 70s, well, when the schools started desegregating, then of course, kids start going to the other school or whatever, the schools start mingling. Then when I had interaction with the white community most is when I moved back here and started working, and then of course I had, I interacted with the white community. And then when my son was Larry's classmate, so when they were in school, even after the schools were integrated, the school didn't have a prom back during that time, after they integrated. The school stopped having a prom. So the black kids was at the white school, but the school just didn't have a prom because they didn't think the kids could even interact with each other. And that was everywhere. So then the club that I belonged to, we used to sponsor a prom for the black kids every year. And we did that until the school started having, this prom that the school did. And then of course, the white community sponsored a prom because they were having proms and parties for their kids anyway. And so, our kids were having nothing, so then we sponsored that for them.
Miss Jackie, believe it or not, when I graduated from high school in '85, we had separate proms.
Yeah.
We had separate queens, everything. And to this day, even at the school now, the white kids will sit on one side, the black kids will sit. We still have it. And even when it's time for prom, you have some of the white kids that will interact with the black kids, but you have a certain group of white parents, they'll give a party that night, like a crawfish boil or something. And that'll stop those kids from coming to the prom, but what it does is the parents that's doing it, it's not our children now. But you're still seeing it.
We need a top generation. Your children's children will have a different attitude, and the old folks won't be around to keep you from doing it.
I agree with that some of the older people, when they're gone, that it'll be a different view. But when parents are teaching hate in their house, then that can't change. Because they're perpetuating the same thing. And I've met some white kids that have actually told me that this is what they're being taught at home. So they're not comfortable interacting with black people when they leave their homes because of the conversations that take place there. But some of that same thing go into some black homes as well. You know what I mean? So it's not just, one side or the other, it's both. So when you have that going on, even generations down the road, I can see some things changing, but I can also see a lot of things that's going to stay exactly the same.
Children generally gonna migrate to where they're comfortable. They segregate themselves with groups in which they're comfortable. But now you still have, for instance, they were talking the other day, at Ole Miss, they still have a black caucus up there. They don't have a white caucus, they have a black caucus. Now, if you try to establish a white caucus, that'd be an uproar. Because, again, is it right or is it wrong? I don't know, but that's a fact. That's the way it is.
That's what these kids talk about in class. When you try to teach, when I try to teach civil rights, they immediately make it relevant to them. And they want to know what is the big deal, because we segregate ourselves on our own. In the cafeteria, the blacks, not every single person now, I'm just saying overall, blacks sit together, whites sit together. At the football games, the blacks sit together, the whites sit together. They don't have to, and they are friends, and they interact they choose to separate themselves. So that's where they are when you're teaching them. We choose this, but blacks and whites will say, that's how we like it. And, you know,
Well, the ultimate theory is for the races to mix in marriage. And also, but it's the children of those marriages that are apt to be ostracized when they come home. That's a shame to lay that on any child. Now, I tell you, that child didn't have a thing in the world to do with mom and daddy, get married or anything else. But if it has to be mistreated or embarrassed or anything else as a result of what their parents did, then I don't think that. But what can you do?
Although, you know, I mean, one of the things that's very interesting about this is that we have a president of the United States who's exactly of such descent, you know. I mean, one of the things I've said to these teachers before, and again, forgive me, this is more of a statement than a question, but it'll get back to a question, is F. Scott Fitzgerald said, the measure of a first-class mind is the ability to hold contradictory opinions simultaneously and still function. And I think that's certainly the mark of a first-class historical mind. And so when I teach this to students of mine, part of what I'm trying to tell them simultaneously is that, you know, if you want to think about this, you have to realize the extent to which nothing's changed, or how little has changed, and how much we still are as we were. And you at the same time have to believe how utterly revolutionary these changes are. I mean, you know, a generation ago, it was against the law in the majority of America, 2 generations ago, against the law in the majority of American states to have the kind of union that created the person who is now president. Right? It would have, if we walked to downtown Macomb and go into the McDonald's, you know, it's quite clear that we will see at some point in the day a black person and a white person together as a couple, which in a previous generation would have not only been against the law, but it could have gotten somebody killed. So I'm struck. I mean, the drift of the questions here has been to how little has changed, how much we're still like that. But I also think we need to keep in mind the world that I was describing today, the world where, you know, people were driven out of the community for having civil rights workers for dinner in their home, or churches were bombed. That's not the world we live in. So somehow, I think that's the trick in teaching this, is to the changes you guys have seen in your life. You live in a country that would have been unimaginable to most people living in the home at the beginning of the 1960s.
My best friend in the Army was a Jewish fellow from Brooklyn Jew, his wife. And he says that you think you've got it bad in Mississippi with the blacks. You ought to come to Brooklyn and see how the Jews are ostracized. And now, for instance, he became he was an Army officer in the Medical Corps. He was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Because he was an officer, he was able to go to the country club outside of Fort, and we went out there for dinner. He said, in New York, I couldn't take you to this country club because I'm Jewish. He said the Jews in some areas are more ostracized, but it's done in a sneaky way. It's not done openly. It comes and then they hit them blindsided sometimes. But it taught me that it's not just black and white. Human nature.
I just want to comment to what you had said, Mr. Jim, about now in our time now, we most likely will see interracial couple. But back at that time, during the, say, let's say 40s to 60s, those things were happening, but it was hidden. Because master always slept with the African American girl or colored girl, whatever you want to call her. And it's just like sometimes that we are now. Prejudice still exists, but it's hidden. Just like they hated sleeping with the colored person. Prejudice now is kind of hidden. And sometimes, like she was saying, we can self-consciously divide ourselves.
It's funny, my class, we're discussing the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson. And we talk about the hypocrisy of it. him having written that all men are created equal with certain unalienable rights, and not just with him owning slaves, but fathering children by a woman that he actually owned. And my views, you can make all the legislation you want in the world to address,
Don't do
segregation.
as I do, but do as I tell you to.
But until you change the hearts of people, it'll never change. It'll never change. There'll always be these same issues we're talking about now. Because, we're talking about people. You can make all the legislation and pass all the laws.
I still say that
hearts change.
education is your answer. We've got to educate everybody to bring the family unit back. We've got to bring a family unit. Now, if you have a child that's raised in a good home where the mom and daddy get along and everybody works and does things like that, that child has got a better chance when they're raised by who? Where do they go home to at night?
Well, we had a solid family structure back during the 50s and 60s. On both sides. But until the playing field is level,
We've been talking about like civil rights movement, we're teaching civil rights movement in the class, women in the state movement, civil rights movement actions again, when the first slave ship actually landed in America. I think civil rights movement again when Christopher Columbus came to it. Because it's not a black and white issue, which is what a lot of people got to realize. Civil rights is not the rights of black people and white people. Civil rights are rights that are violated because I'm not treating you as a human because of certain things, be it race, creed, sexual orientation, handicap, or whatever. It's not about black and white. You have to realize that. You can't just teach black and white because women were, the civil rights of women was violated. They couldn't vote just because they're sex. That was a civil rights violation. You have to realize it's more than just a black and white issue when you teach in the science classroom. If you limit it to that, you're going to have controversy. But if you teach the whole scope of the civil rights movement, the whole scope of the history of this country, you're going to see that the Indians' rights were violated, the Mexican or Chicano people's rights were violated, the Japanese people, all types of people's civil rights were violated, but for some strange reason, whenever you say civil rights movement in this country, civil rights, the first thing they think of is a black and white issue. And it's not just black and white.
I had to
It's right.
She asked me that question.
But
She
it's-
said, do you mean it's not just black and white? And I
But
said, no.
but see, whenever you
The
teach
American Indian was more
you have-
mistreated than anybody.
But yeah, because all this was theirs, and none of it's theirs now. But you have to look at the whole scope of it all, and you can't just say black and white. And that's where y'all are limiting yourselves inside your classroom to this little small hole. And whenever you start doing that, folks are gonna start acting crazy, and parents are gonna start complaining.
I got a question, Ms. Martin. When y'all walked out of the school, what did the teachers and administrators do? Did they join you, or did they?
No, they didn't walk out. The teachers did. But there were some teachers there that were very supportive of what we were doing. But they didn't walk out. And it was the principal that said that, what he wanted us to sign a statement before we were readmitted to the school.
When you walked out, what happened when you got home? What did your parents, what was their reaction?
My mom, as a matter of fact,
Wait, hold on, before I had to interrupt. Now, mind you, you say you gotta walk past all these other parents' houses, and that y'all were together as a community.
Right.
So was everybody kind of outside when that, waiting on all of y'all to come home?
no, when we were arrested, then that community came to get the kids. You know what I mean? And then because we were downtown, and, in City Hall, because the jail was there in that building. And when my mom came, then it wasn't just my mom that came, it was a lot of kids from my community that was in jail with me. Then this whole community came down to get their kids. And then the kids that were from the other black areas, like Algiers and so forth, in those different communities, then those kind of communities kind of poured out the same way to get their kids.
So, just a quick clarification. So the kids who were under 18 were released into the custody of their parents
That
and not
night,
charged?
right.
Okay.
The ones that was over.
Can I ask another question? This is actually much disputed in the historical literature. How spontaneous was this movement? Because the normal story is that the students decided to do this. But I also know that there were some civil rights workers who were there observing this, so they must have thought this was gonna happen. And they, so, what's your answer to that?
I think it was both. You know, that it was sort of spontaneous on the students' part, but I think the civil rights workers that were in town, that they were kind of, kept climbing the pump a little bit.
Was it a single act or something that happened like the straw that broke the camel's back?
Well, it was because Brenda Travis was not allowed back in school after she had participated in a city enrollment.
She wasn't allowed back in school because she participated in the sit-in. Didn't the sit-in take place over summer?
It did.
And she was expelled from school because of something that she did when school wasn't even in and had nothing at all to do with school.
Right. It took place over the summer, and then Brenda was sent to, right. And so she didn't come back, you know, school started like the beginning of September, and then she didn't come back from there until October, when she was, you know, trying to get into school.
And they wouldn't read that.
Right.
So she was sent to the reformatory?
It's an open term?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. I guess any of the three of you chime in on it. I was surprised when Dr. Campbell brought up that the Klan was not necessarily a major force in Mississippi prior to 1960.
Right, right.
I did not realize that. I thought there had been sort of a steady stream of it from, General Forrest on up. So that may have been my ignorance. But my question is, and I guess having been born in the 70s, and a lot of my understanding of this situation being informed by the media, I've always sort of in the back of my mind had the idea that at any time prior to the 70s, no black family could feel safe in their own home or going to work or going to church or going to school, no matter what the circumstances, and no matter how much they compromise with the existing system. So is that just an idea that we've gotten through the media or from just overemphasis on certain things that happen? I mean, because I was shocked when I heard you talk about your community, because it sounded to me like you were actually able to, not that we agree with the power structure, but that within that power structure, it seemed like you were living a relatively safe existence. So what I'm asking is, how violent were the times prior to the 60s and during it? I guess what I'm saying is, were you able to lead a normal life? Because I think the media gives us an idea that just your homes could be invaded at any time, or you couldn't walk down the street without some crazy fool
No, I was
harassing
safe
you.
in that community,
But it was an all black.
but it was an all black
Almost stayed in your
community.
place.
Yeah, it was an all black community.
Almost stayed in your place, you would say.
Right.
So the white people didn't necessarily intrude on your community.
Once in a while.
We knew
Yeah,
better,
yeah.
we knew better. It's like I told you, my dad went up into the Bergman community and made a house call in the middle of the night, which was most unusual. Because it wasn't usually what they wanted to do. They wanted that person to come into the hospital and be seen there, not the doctor go out in there. But he made somewhat of a risky move by going out there in the middle of the night.